Welcome back to Paper Labyrinths. I'm Nick,
I'm Brendan.
and today we're joined by Megan Carnes, who is an award-winning Chicago-based composer for games and other media. She has made music for projects such as Helheim Hassle, Starweaver, and the YouTube game documentary channel NoClip, and was a music implementer on the Lamplighters League. She also makes her own music-centric games, including her upcoming tarot music game Divinuet. And obviously that's all great, but most importantly, made the music for this actual podcast. Hi, Megan.
That's true, I did. Hello.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you both doing?
I'm really good. I am super curious, and I know all of our listeners are. Did you get the full tarot Miro? Miro. Did you get the mirror in the shape of the full tarot? As was widely shared.
I kind of want to, but it's like just on the cusp of too expensive where I'm like, I don't know if I want to buy this thing just as a bit, you know?
This is a calculation I do a lot, which is how much am I willing to spend for this particular bit? Like how big is the payoff going to be?
Right, exactly.
How much bit tarot things do you have? Because I know you have a lot of decks, but that's different from goofs.
Yeah, I guess I don't have that many. I have a couple like novelty decks. Like I have one that's all cats and one that's Lord of the Rings, which is like both cool and goofy.
You have a pasta one too, don't you?
I do have a pasta one. But yeah, other than that, I don't own much like tarot merch, I guess. I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah. I guess that's probably the right way to...
Is it the pasta tarot of the pastatarot.com with like a red and white hatch background? Or not background, but on the back?
Yeah, like the tablecloths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to look it up immediately. This looks terrific.
Yeah, because the suits are like long noodles. You told me about this years ago now, so I can't quite remember. The suits are all like category shapes of...
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There's like long, short, stuffed, and one other that I can't remember now.
Crazy.
This is just an ad now. This is just an ad.
Yeah, I can just explain each of my like 25 decks and what I like about them, and that can be the show.
Exactly.
That would be a fun stream.
Honestly, if I had done better homework, I would have gotten out a tarot deck and shuffled it so we can do a reading live on air or something like that.
I mean,
but I did not.
I have one.
I was going to say, surely one between the three of us, there's one within arm's reach that we could do.
I always have at least a couple just on my desk.
Oh, and there's three of us, so we could each draw a card, and that would be a different card in the.
I could do it. I've got my deck right here.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is great.
Mine might be in a box somewhere.
Radio. Is this going to make it in the episode? Who will know?
Surely. Okay, you know what? Surely I can find something online.
There'll be something.
Well, while Brendan is doing that and virtually shuffling, I would love, because Megan, you stream talking about or Divinuet dev streams, but you should just do a like, here's every deck I have. And just like a chat. I'm not joking. That would be a lot of fun.
That would be kind of fun, yeah.
Because there's so many decks that are like, there are a lot of recognizable decks. I don't think I knew this until I really started paying attention to tarot like several years ago, which is like, oh yeah, everyone just kind of knows there's like popular decks beyond like Rider-Waite or whatever, which like the classics, which is like the bicycle card deck equivalent, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just say like, here's a primer on popular decks or, goofy decks that I have or whatever, right?
That would be fun. It would also be a lot less work than like composing or implementing on stream, which is very tiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Yeah, I could never streaming development. I've never wanted to do it. All of a sudden you're making typos and all that kind of thing that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah, I always make like hella typos, just like tons on stream, and I don't know.
The amount of development. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say the amount of game development that I do that is me trying to think of a particular thing that I used to know how to do or have done once, and I did it 9 years ago, and it's like, okay, Unity, C sharp, how to da
Yeah.
da 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 da. Like that's a lot of it, if I'm being honest.
Once a project, I'll have to look up like, wait, how do I do this one Unity thing that you have to do once every project
Right.
or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Or worse, I deal in Unreal a lot, which means I have to work in blueprints.
Yeah.
Which, blueprints have their uses. Oftentimes, it's the job of a designer to put them to things that they were never meant to use. And that means that you have to know what the name of the node is in order to do the one specific thing that you need to know. But you can't find the node unless you already know the name of the thing. So I'm just punching in descriptions of like, find event, but one eye closed, turned around. No one wants to watch me develop something. It'd be gross.
Yeah, when I do streams, I very much like if I'm doing an implementing stream or something, I won't like make a new like any part of a new music system or anything. It'll just be putting stuff into the existing music system, so it's already very like I don't know, planned out, and there won't be any surprises.
And you get the like, oh, and here's what it sounds like or looks like or whatever. It's not the like, well, here's all this work I did, and now there's more work to do to actually have like a result on screen, which is, most of what actually game development work is.
Yeah, exactly.
Long stretches of nothing happening or nothing apparent happening. So.
Can you talk really briefly about what Divinuet is and how it's put together?
So Divinuet is essentially, I don't know if it's even a game technically, because you can't like win it or anything, but it's essentially just like a tarot reading with a musical accompaniment. So the game is sort of divided into two parts. During the first half of the game, you get a 3-card reading, and each card has like a little individual theme song that plays while you're getting the card's definition. Then the second half of the game kind of combines different layers together based on what cards you got and what order they're in to make like a unique piece of music.
Cool.
Essentially. Yeah.
So it's almost like both a thing for tarot reading, but the thing generates music that is unique to that particular reading. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm kind of hoping some people will use it like, I don't know, do readings with actual physical decks and then put those cards into the game to see what they sound like and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was experimenting with that a little yesterday because I now have all the card themes implemented, so I can do that, and it was fun.
Way to go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Was the Divinuet having only a 3-card reading always a constraint, or was there ever like, oh, we'll do any kind of reading or anything like that? Like, because that sounds like pretty straightforward constraint, but I imagine it could have been something different.
Yeah, it was always 3 cards just because of the way the second half of the game with the building of the layers and whatnot is put together.
Gotcha.
It kind of has to be 3 cards at least, like with how the system I set up works. So, yeah. I thought about potentially allowing like different numbers of cards in the readings, but that would have gotten like way too complicated and too many layers and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you describe it, maybe not quite as a game, but I wouldn't necessarily say like a tool. It's not as open as you would say a tool is, and that's like it matches up music to tarot cards. Like it has constraints. It has game-like constraints within it, which is, I mean, just makes sense from like a production point of view, of course, but it like on the output kind of is interesting, right? In that it's not like a music and tarot tool, which I think is fun. I think it has opinions on what it's going to be.
I think so. If I had just had the first half of the game, right, where it's like the cards playing their individual themes, like I totally could have had it be just more like a tool, right? But I don't know. I felt like it was really important to have that second section where you kind of hear everything combined together, like, I don't know, kind of like the different vibes of the different cards, like how they combine, because a reading is always more than just the individual cards, right? You kind of take how they all work together and that kind of thing. Like that's a very important part of it, and figuring out the overall story of the reading and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask, we spoke a little bit before we started recording, but also, talking about this idea of like having a particular idea of what it is that you want the thing to do, and then working with the tool set in order to like put that thing together. How much of that was, this is my particular vision of how I want those things to go, and I'm going to use this particular set of tools to do that? Or how much of it was, this is the tool set that I have, here are the things that I can do with it? Like, did you start from like a idea of the thing, or did you start more from like, here are the tools that I have available kind of thing?
I think it's kind of both. With the music system in particular, I had just like a very specific vision of what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to like the visuals of the game, that was kind of more working with what I could do, because I'm not any kind of visual artist. So I'm using all like public domain assets. And what I landed on was kind of like a old silent film aesthetic, because the second half of the game, where you are getting the combined piece of music from all the different cards, I was like, I need some kind of visuals here to go along with it. And I ended up just like using old public domain silent films. I don't know like why my mind went to that. Maybe because I also work on films. But yeah, so, and then that just kind of informed the aesthetic of how the whole game looks visually. So that was kind of cool, because that was not at all what I had in mind, like going in, but I think it ended up like being pretty unique and interesting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but yeah, the music system, yeah, I don't know. I've, just because of how complicated it is, I've had to be like very deliberate about planning it out and have like a very, very specific thing that I want, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and this is not even the first version of it, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, the first half of the game is simple, so that's basically always been the same. It's just like a little interlude that plays between the card themes and then the card themes themselves. So that's simple. But the second half, how I did like the different layers and everything, I had one system and realized it wasn't working and had to like completely scrap it and start from scratch, which I'm really glad I did, because the first one just wasn't very good, honestly. But yeah.
Been there.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple people were like, oh, are you sure you want to like throw away all that work you did? And I was like, yes, absolutely.
Was that work distinct music or just like a kind of arrangement or organization?
Both. So
the total response to that question. Yeah.
Yeah. All of it.
Yeah.
I had like a certain way, like the different layers were combining, and it didn't sound very musical. It literally just sounded like random layers stacked on top of each other. So I had to do away with that whole system, which meant rewriting all the music
because
layers
you have
and stuff too.
78 songs that are in some bizarrely huge combination set that could go with one another. So yeah, the threshold to just like noise is pretty close by.
Yeah, for sure. I could just explain how the music system works now, but it is for the second half, but it's really complicated. I like literally have this big chart drawn out that I've used in like talks and stuff, and yeah, it's like real big.
That's fun. I like that. I mean, I like that it's, I don't know, it sounds, it's not reductive. Like you're like quantifying, I don't know, like tarot and music and your cards and everything into like literally a chart, but it does add up to something greater than some of its parts when it's put all together, which is good. Obviously, I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to call out like something that you said, which is, you wanted it to sound like music, which, reading your blog posts about how Divinuet is put together is like one of the pillars of the thing that you're trying to create. And, I've heard a lot of good generative music that I've listened to that involves a lot of like soft pads and ambient notes and stuff like that, where it's kind of a bed of noise that is soothing and interesting and stuff like that, but it doesn't sound musical. It doesn't sound melodic in the way that that a lot of your stuff sounds. And so it's not an insignificant challenge to imagine trying to put all of those things together.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I think, anything kind of generative like that is hard because, I don't know, if you have like really busy layers that are very melodic and have a lot going on, they're more likely to clash with other layers that might come in. So you just have to like be very meticulous about planning it out. And
Right.
it's the most I've thought about music theories since like college, probably. And yeah.
Sure.
I've taken exactly enough music theory to get myself in trouble. I can't write music, but I can understand enough of it to be like, oh, I see what's going on here a little bit. But
Nice.
as someone that's always flirted with this idea of like, oh, music's really interesting, maybe I should really like get into writing it, or at least like understanding it or playing it in some way. It's always struck me how at least the stuff that you try and learn as a beginner seems very, very deliberately structured as like, these are the things that work together and they go together in this particular way. You play these chords with these notes, you play within this key. And the idea of putting things together in a way that is not like so tightly under your control as to be generative seems like a magic spell.
Yeah, it's always kind of weird for me because I also do film scoring, which is such the opposite because it's so like very specifically crafted to these specific moments, and it's sometimes a little weird for me, like kind of letting go of some of that control. Like, I don't know, with the layers, I can't possibly test every single possible combination to hear how the mix sounds. So I kind of just have to like do the best I can with the mix, and trust that it'll be okay, or
Right.
okay enough, I guess. But yeah, I don't remember the original question.
Oh, it was more like it was less a question and more just sort of an expression of like wonder of like there's
thank you.
there's so much that goes into playing a single piece of music and having that sound good to begin with, that the idea like, and I've listened to the music that you've made. I'm not just like speaking speculatively. I think it sounds good. I think it works together really, really well, and it's really impressive to see all of that stuff flow together.
Thank you. That's really nice of you. It's like a hard balance between trying to make it sound musical and also work within the generative kind of framework. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it sounds pretty good most of the time when I listen to it. I don't hear anything that I'm like, ugh. So that's a good sign, I think.
That's it. That's the mark of quality.
You just have to pick a reading that are like the most dissonant, clashing from the the card themes, and then go, okay, how does this work? Because you couldn't possibly listen to however many tens of thousands of combinations there are. So just pick whatever might be the worst, and then go, okay. How does this
Yeah.
together?
I've been doing a little bit of that. Like, for example, I don't know, like, one of the things that's determined by the cards in the second half of the game is like this kind of accompaniment layer that plays throughout the whole thing.
How is that determined?
That is determined by what the majority of cards is in your reading. So, like, for example, if you get a reading that's mostly wands, you're going to have a really kind of energetic thing. It's like
Right.
synth harp and brass and that kind of thing. But if you have mostly cups, for example, that's like soft piano and strings and everything. So that really kind of sets the tone of, that whole second half music. And so one thing I've been doing is testing, like, okay, what if you have a reading that has, I don't know, like 2 wands, but also the 4 of swords or something, which is very much about like rest and relaxation and stuff. Like, does this sound really weird altogether? Like maybe it's okay if it's a little weird because that card is kind of incongruent with the rest of them. But just testing for stuff like that.
This was like the big thing I wanted to talk to you about is, so like tarot, very interpretive, very generative in infinite ways in the order of the cards, and if they're reversed or whatever, right? Like what you take out of it, and different people interpreting things. And then the music also, like how much is generating music, which is in some ways very rules based in theory, which I understand like absolutely nothing about. I know I could name you the notes, like musical notes, and that's about as far as I could get.
Nick, what are your 3 favorite notes?
Oh, well, C, classic.
Sure.
Okay, you can't go wrong.
Classic starts with a C.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Is F sharp a note, or would
it sure is.
Great. Well, because I know there's some notes that have a sharp and some that don't have a flat or whatever. I don't know. I know flat is B, and then sharp is a little.
Well, any note can be sharp or flat, actually, but some are more unusual to have as sharps or flats than others.
See, I think the opposite of the opposite of sharp is really dull. So instead of like E flat, I say E dull.
Yeah.
And I'm thrown out of every conservatory.
C pokey and
C kiki, D.
Yeah. Boba and Kiki.
Yeah.
What the hell was I talking about?
You were talking about, the combinatory nature of tarot, and how like it works as a system that can be interpreted, that can express something.
Yeah, and music also has a layer of interpretation, obviously, but is a lot more rules-based in theory, or can be interpreted in a very rules-based way, I suppose. So, like, I guess what I'm saying is I'm interested in that you have let the music, or I guess like maybe the music follows the cards more so than the other way around, and that you're okay with dissonant or maybe bad in some ways sounding musical thing, but that's because the cards are clashing.
Yeah.
I don't have a question, I guess. It's just like something I've been thinking about preparing for this is like, well, there's a lot here that I'm really interested in like digging into, basically.
Yeah. If it's like a card that doesn't fit in with the other cards so well, like it's okay if during the second half of the game that card sounds like a little out of place or something. It's not so much that the notes are like dissonant or clashing, except for in like the cards that are bad, like the tower or something. Those I like purposely wrote in dissonant stuff. But more like, I don't know, like the accompaniment is very like lively, and suddenly you got the Four of Swords and the melody is very just kind of like slow and soft and something. And that, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition in ways, and does kind of lead to like combinations of, I don't know, like accompaniment and melody that I wouldn't have thought to put together, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, when I think of tarot readings, I think so much about like my state of mood going into it, and how very often the cards seem to reflect back to me like whatever I'm kind of bringing to it, you know what I mean? Like, so many people have told me that, it's not fortune telling, it's more of like a device to like sort through your own thoughts and feelings to sort of determine something, which, I feel like is true. And so often I feel like if I bring a bad attitude, then my reading is often very pessimistic. Or if I'm looking for something to like spur me on to try to do the thing that I'm not quite sure about, then hopefully it's going to give me the like, yeah, go for it, son. You got this. And so often, like, there's pieces of music, particularly like, firmly instrumental stuff, that I feel like reflects back to me what it is that I'm bringing to it, right? Like, there's lots and lots of stuff that I enjoy listening to, but that I can get very impatient with, that I can read sort of timidity or cynicism in, depending on how I'm feeling. And so I feel like, you said there, Nick, that there's rules for interpretation, but I feel like so much of that depends on the listener and what they're bringing to the listening experience when a particular piece of music starts playing. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say rules for interpretation. I guess I just mean you can apply a set of rules if you want to
Sure.
in a way with music, because music, like, there's obviously, oh boy, I'm going out on a limb by saying musical terms, modes and
yes.
and scales, I think.
Sure.
Anyways, so you can bring different like criteria to it or whatever that'll say like, oh, well, these notes sound good together in this rule set or so on. And I kind of feel like that is similar to tarot, both in like an emotional sense and also in like, well, I'm using this deck which has this art, and then that leads you down different paths maybe.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to music theory in that there are rules you learn and whatnot, and then you're free to break them if you want. And it's kind of like the same with tarot. Like, I don't know, there are kind of understood reading or meanings for each card, but people will have their own interpretations of them also, just kind of based on their own feelings towards the cards, or
House
I don't
rules.
know how they feel about the art. Yeah, house rules, exactly.
Oh, the art. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about like, oh, a particular piece of art makes me feel a particular way that changes my reading of a given card or something like that. That's fun.
Yeah, having all these different decks, I feel like each one kind of has its own like personality almost.
Sure,
So I get
yeah.
like very different vibes of readings from all the different ones, which is cool because I can have different decks for different moods and that kind of thing. Like if I'm like, okay, I'm sad and I need a deck to be nice to me.
Sure.
Like I have ones for that. And then I don't know if I'm like, no, I just need something very honest and blunt and that kind of thing. I have other decks for that.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is what I want your stream to be about. Like literally, this is my honest deck. This is my inspirational deck. I mean, also this is something that Megan, you and I have had literally a conversation about like yesterday or something.
Yeah.
Which is like I got a deck forever ago because it looked cool, and then now I'm like, I don't know if I like this deck as much as I did when I got it, and now I need another deck. And now it's like, well, what's the what's my next deck? And then it's like there was just an obvious one that I was just putting myself off of getting, which I eventually did.
So do you think
and it was all based on the art?
Do you think your tastes and interests changed, and that's why your feelings towards it changed?
I think it's actually probably more my awareness of like going back to like, oh, there's just well-known decks, right? Like,
Sure.
because the one I got was one that Megan was like, oh, hey, check this out. This seems like you would like it, which is like you're damn right I did.
Yeah.
And then just
But it's like a
more,
Spider-Man deck.
That's right. That's right. It's actually let me see, a Boss Baby deck. Every Boss Baby character is in it.
Of course. Yeah. I saw it and was instantly like, oh, Nick, Boss Baby, of course.
Yeah. It was $198, but it's worth it. So no, I think it was, I mean, obviously my taste, everyone's tastes changed over years, but whatever. It was becoming more like, oh, right. Like I kept kind of seeing, just like, as people would talk more about their tarot decks, I sort of understood like, oh, there's a kind of a popular set, I suppose, among people that are really paying attention to the world of tarot and art and stuff.
I know when I was first starting out, I just wasn't aware there were so many different decks out there. Or I knew they were, but I figured they were all probably kind of the same. Like, I don't know, like riffs on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck or whatever. And then I think just, as I realized I got more into it, and followed like some tarot influencers or whatever on Instagram. Just like, oh, there are a lot of really cool indie decks out there and stuff.
What is tarot influencer like? I've never heard those two words put together before until this exact second.
I also haven't, but I immediately just accepted that that's a thing that exists.
yeah.
So there are some who do like collective readings or whatever, and I don't like those. I think those are, just like stupid bullshit.
What
like,
is it? So sorry, what is a collective?
Is that a reading for all of your followers at once?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like the horoscopes you see in the newspaper or whatever.
Wow.
Which I'm not an astrology person, like at all in general, but especially that. Like,
Nick, we got to start doing that week after week. We'd pull in
That's true.
so much money.
We load up Caves of Cud, we hit random and go, all right, everybody. Looks like our
That's right.
two-legged or four-legged. Everyone has two legs. What are you talking about? Anyway, so sorry. There's collective reading tarot influencers. What's the next
Yeah,
category?
don't like them. But I like people who like make spreads or like review indie decks, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, product-y maybe to really reduce it down, maybe unfairly. But yeah, here's a deck, here's the art, and so on.
Yeah, that, and I like people who make like really unique tarot spreads. Like there's this one person I follow called Light Ones that makes tarot spreads just like based on random pop culture things. Like they made one based on Severance and one based on Stardew Valley, Balatro. Like it's just really fun. Lots of people are making like really unique spreads.
Cool.
I didn't consider how much the spread itself is like, I don't know, something to play with, or
yeah,
that's interesting.
That's fun. I don't know. I haven't made like that many spreads myself, but it is kind of interesting to do.
Boss Baby Tarot spread. Okay.
Yeah.
We can move on. Brandon is shaking his head silently.
I wanted to ask you, I was asking you about tools before, and I wanted to ask you about a shared experience that I think we both have, which is trying to get a game development job and needing to make something to prove that you can do the game development job.
Yes.
This is like such a core part of my lived experience in the industry of like trying to like knowing in my heart of hearts that like I can do the thing that you are saying that you need in this job description, but not having the like resume material to necessarily back it up. And so thinking, okay, I guess I'm just going to go make the thing that demonstrates that I can do the thing so I can put it at the top of my resume and force people to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I, for a while, was only doing like films and that kind of thing, which I love, but wanted to start doing games as well. And I found that people would just not accept film scoring experience as composing experience, which I get, but it's also kind of annoying. I don't know. People get mad when I say that film scoring and game scoring are like 90% the same skill set, but they truly are. But yeah, so I was like, okay, I'll just make some kind of like little demo thing that shows that I know how to use Wise and do interactive music and all that. And of course, I was like, as I got into making it, I was like, ooh, like I want to do more than just have them like push buttons and the thing happens. I want there to be art and story and everything. So of course, yeah, just like snowballed into like a bigger thing, became an actual game, which was my first game interview. And yeah, that was a while ago. And then I don't know, I enjoyed that, and so that's why I decided to do the Vignette, which is turning out to be a super long project, but it's been fun.
Yeah, the other essential part of game development is having one idea that blossoms into a much, much bigger project before you realize it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I definitely, relate to what you were saying.
Yeah.
About like needing to make a thing to show that you can do the thing, even though like you can do it.
Yeah. Like I've been on both sides of the table, trying to get a job, but also trying to talk to people to get who are trying to get jobs too. And I feel like, for one thing, there's just such a volume of people that you have to really, really be patient with the amount of time that you're spending. Which can be a very difficult thing to do as someone who's is seeking a job. When you're seeking a job, you want one right away. But the experience of like talking to someone and getting to know their work and getting to know like, okay, well, even if I have the output of what you've done, I want to talk to you about what your experience was and what things you did along the way. Is such a, I don't want to say delicate necessarily, but it's such a thing that requires a careful kind of precision. Like you're constantly trying to figure out like, okay, well, how do I try to get someone to talk in the terms that I am expecting them to talk with without coming across like I'm trying to get them to say a secret word that will signal to me that they know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it does. Absolutely. And I can definitely understand the other side of it too. Because, I mean, I said a bit ago that like film and game scoring are like 90% the same skill set, but that other 10% is like a really important difference, you know?
Totally.
And you really need to know how to, I don't know, write layers that can sit on top of each other nicely, but also sound good on their own at times. Or like even just like knowing how to make it loop seamlessly and sound nice and that kind of thing. Like this is all really important.
Yeah, when you were saying like you don't have the level of control that you sometimes is nice for a film, which is sometimes like it's there's a level of control that you don't have in a game, but it also you might just be like, well, for a completely arbitrary reason, this has to be 29 seconds long and it has to start fading out at 26 seconds. And oops, sorry, that like changes. And then, you know, there's like stupid, weird little things where like in a film, it's like you have the music, you have the space to do music and you can just do it. Right. And that gets, I can see that tripping people up in some ways until you get used to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I do think there are some composers who think they can just go from one medium to another and do like basically the exact same way of composing, and that's just not how it works at all. But, yeah. But to what you were saying a bit ago, there actually is some of that in film too. Like, I don't know, things having to be certain lengths for arbitrary reasons.
Yeah, that's
that kind
probably
of thing.
not the best example, but
But
I guess
do know what
different
you mean.
arbitrary limitations for both have arbitrary limitations. I guess it feels like games would have the potentially weirder set of arbitrary limitations. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, kind of out of all the different mediums I've written for, it's the least similar to just writing like a standalone piece of music or something, you know, to be performed in a concert or something. Game music is definitely like the least similar way of writing music to that. It's kind of, the biggest learning curve and stuff. Yeah, just a completely different way of thinking about it. It's really fun though. I like it.
It's always very tempting as well. I think every designer or developer for a game would be like, if you could have like totally generative music in every project, you just would, because it's such an appealing thing to do where it's like, oh, and all these elements, because like the game is so dynamic and it's producing these new outcomes, and like, well, shouldn't the music, or couldn't, if I could have the music doing that too, that would be wonderful. And then in almost every scenario, it's like, it's probably better just to have like a straightforward piece of music that is playing and not like actually generative, because I mean, as we've talked through, it's really hard and it very easily slips out of control in a bad way.
Yeah, and I don't know, some kind of generative music can sound really good, but I don't think most of it gets close to something that's just like very intentionally composed by a person to be a certain way. And this isn't even like getting into Gen AI, which I hate that the word generative has kind of like, like when I say I like am doing some generative stuff for Divinuet, I have to be like, but not like AI music, you know, different thing, completely different. But it's just a little sidebar.
Right.
But
You're not getting paid VC money to torch the planet.
No.
Yeah. Going, back to what you were saying, Nick, about what kind of music you'd want to have in a space. Like a lot of, historically I've worked on a lot of stuff that has associated IPs already attached to it. And a lot of times that means it has like a very clear kind of sonic identity to it. Sonic the Hedgehog is there, and he hands you his card and he says, "Hello, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog, and this is what my music sounds like." And so, like, a lot of those experiences are very deliberately like mimicking the experience of the film or the TV show or whatever it is that the game is based on. And so many times there's been the opportunity to be like, well, do we want to do something a little bit more unique or original or generatively controlled or something like that? And very often the answer has been like, for this particular project, it kind of matters a little bit more that we sound like the TV show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that means that like you need to build that music in such a way that it's going to sound a little bit awkward when you fade out of the battle music and you go into the victory music. Yes, but that is kind of like, at least at the time that we were doing it, you know, sort of the trade-off for sounding more like the thing than not.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like, I don't know, the music in all the Star Wars games sounds
Right,
very
exactly.
Star Wars, you know? Or like, my husband Alex recently played the RoboCop game, and that sounded very RoboCop.
Yeah.
What is RoboCop music? I can't like hear that in my head off the top.
It's like very like, I don't know, like mighty, brassy.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think also like the kind of, I don't know, fade outs from the combat music into whatever music comes next. Like sometimes it can sound a little awkward, but I think people also just kind of expect that in a game setting. So it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's the other
generally.
thing is making a game, you see all the awkward joins so clearly. And then I think everyone that plays the game is like, yeah, you know, it's just like, like there's your brain just kind of skips over those really.
It's part of the learned experience, right? Of this is what a game feels like.
Yeah. One of the really annoying things about music implementation is that if you do it well, people just won't really notice. But if you do really, really bad implementation, then that's when people notice.
Yeah. Someone who has to do all the music and sound implementation, I think that's the, like, I don't know, to just shit on the generative AI.
Do it.
Things more.
Yeah.
There's so much, like, I guess you would call it like a delusion or a fantasy that people have that like, oh, there's gonna be the perfectly immersive, like seamless game that's the holodeck, you know, metaverse experience. Like all these things just kind of blend together, but it's that like the games won't be awkward anymore, and it's gonna look perfect, and it's gonna look exactly like your favorite Star Trek episode, and it's just frankly, I don't know, it's more interesting when there's awkward little bumps in like the you know, you can see the seam, maybe, I suppose, if you want to think of it that way,
Or the brushstroke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Every piece of AI generated music that I've heard so far has been the exact same synthwave track. It's just gruel, you know?
Yeah, it's, I don't know, just very like soulless. I saw, I don't know who posted it originally, but I saw this good analogy that was like, if you like feed a bunch of Mozart and Haydn to an AI, you'll get like probably a decent approximation of Mozart and Haydn.
Sure.
But if you feed Mozart and Haydn to a human, then you get Beethoven. So like, it's just kind of like regurgitating stuff, and it's real boring, and I don't know.
I like the awkward bits of anything that people make is the more interesting part.
I like the idea that you do need to feed your favorite composer to someone in order to generate a new composer.
Well, yeah, that's how it works.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got a full art Mozart, and then you've got a foil Haydn, and you put those in.
I use a Firestone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's why there are only like 4 composers working at any given time.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. It's a big pyramid scheme.
This is why they're all cis white men, is because Nick, I want to ask you about like you know, you by your own admission, not a music person, but is the person that does a lot of music implementation.
Yeah.
Wait, what is
How do I bridge that?
Yeah, how do you bridge that?
Well, that's a great question. I do as little as possible in that I'm also I am, let's say, benefited by
the loading screen for Banished Vault comes up and says, "Please unplug your headphones."
Yeah, this is the worst listening experience possible. Yeah. It's just really convenient that I make all my games set in places that don't have music playing in them. No, so this basically, in a sense, right, like strategy games you can just play music in a very loosely structured way. There's not there is not that much to specifically cue off of that is then hard to implement, right? Like,
Sure.
so I can, and for Banished Vault and Amber Spire, we worked with Nervous Test Pilot and Dream Track for the Banished Vault, who just made great music. And it's like, great, this is just going to play in the game now. And then what I do is I have a little bit of a firmer grasp on sound design principles. I wouldn't be able to get work as a sound designer, but that I can do more. And that, like, okay, the like one trick in the Banished Vault is as you play in a solar system, all of the sound gets more reverby and distorted as you get closer to the end of a solar system. And then when you reset, all those effects like snap back to neutral, basically. And the music is kind of fit into that. But yeah, I guess when I say I'm not a music person, I'm mostly like, I don't understand how to make music or how anyone makes music, or what theory is. But I have gotten good enough, I suppose, through sheer repetition I can put it into a game and make it sound good. If it's good music, it'll sound good in the game. I can promise that. But I couldn't make bad music good or anything like that.
Gotcha.
I think I noticed in the Banished Vault you have a lot of like silence too. It's
That's what I mean by like, oh, it's a strategy. It's like a horror strategy game set in space. It's scary when it's silent. Isn't that convenient?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But more seriously, that's the playing to your strengths, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been nice to work with good music, and then it's just like, great, I can, like I said, do as little as possible, and that I don't try and improve it in any way, because it would just average down to make it worse, right? So yeah, that's my strategy. I did try to learn music theory at some point, and I realized quickly, if I wanted to understand this, I would have to dedicate my life to it for a large amount of time to like understand it. It was not, for whatever reason, I grew up understanding like visual art and maybe games to a certain degree more easily, or maybe I just started earlier with it and I never really played music. I did play clarinet in school, which was kind of a disaster.
Oh no.
So by the time I was like, maybe I should think about learning music, it was way too late for me to like really have the dedication to put time into it, which to some extent I think is most of what you need to learn anything like that.
That's very funny that you like literally played an instrument, but think of yourself not as a music person.
I mean, but in fifth grade, does anyone like
I don't know,
understand music? I didn't.
I do know a lot of people who played an instrument in like elementary school or whatever for like a year or something and don't consider themselves musicians.
I think it was like a year, maybe two. It was like, and also, I don't know how complicated a clarinet is, but it was like, all right, everyone, you've graduated from a recorder. Nick, you suck at this. Why don't you just get a larger recorder? You can't make an embouchure. Don't even try.
Hey,
so
they didn't keep you on the recorder.
That's true.
They felt comfortable enough increasing your volume. Unless a clarinet is harder to play than a recorder, so it's more likely that you're blowing and nothing is coming out.
That probably was true for a lot of the time.
That might be.
Did you play music, Brendan, at any point?
I did a lot of singing in middle school and high school, and
nice.
I was actually the president of show choir in my senior year.
Oh, wow.
Which meant that I got to conduct the show choir for our final song of our final concert, and I did a very bad job. We almost completely failed to sing a song that we have sung 100 times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I looked a bit like Bugs Bunny up there. I tried to learn a bit of piano and a bit of guitar over the years, but I never really managed to stick with it.
I am not very good at any instruments anymore. I mean, I can play like piano enough, but I grew up playing violin, and I'm pretty rusty now. But yeah, the reason I played violin was because we were trying out for orchestra, and I went in wanting to do like viola or cello, but I was an extremely impressionable child. And I went in, and the teacher was like, "Oh, you have violin fingers," because I have like real long, skinny fingers. I was like, "Well, I guess I'm playing violin," and that was that. But I do like it. But yeah, it's one of those things that now that I'm adult, I'm aware of how bad I sound, and like there are
Yeah.
neighbors above and below me.
Look, everyone grows into shame, and
Yeah.
that naturally is an inverse correlation to playing music badly.
Not me.
So-
I was born ashamed. Megan, I do have to point out there is a keyboard literally right next to you if you cannot play.
There is, yeah. I mean, I'm all right at piano. I never took like lessons or anything, so I'm sure my technique is incorrect or whatever. But I can play well enough to do what I need to do for my composing.
Sure.
I would imagine on average you're better just in that you're thinking about music a lot more than most people.
Yeah. I also play like mandolin and ukulele, just like a lot of instruments that I can play
Sure.
like well enough. I play a little guitar, but guitar feels very big to me because I play so many tiny stringed instruments.
Right.
So every time I play one, I'm like, why does this have so many strings? Why is it so large? I don't understand.
This, if you had only started on the cello, the guitar would have
Yeah.
been so natural to you.
That's
And
right.
That's
the
true.
whole course of your life was diverted by being an impressionable, long-fingered youth.
Yes, yes.
You'd look at a guitar and be like, "This is for a baby."
Yeah, exactly.
If each of you could, given no constraints on time or energy or interest, learn a new instrument, what would you learn?
Violin, I think.
Oh, do you have violin
Just
fingers?
seems-
Let's see them. Megan, what do you think?
Maybe not.
Damn.
But that's okay.
Infinite time, infinite energy, infinite
Yeah, you
fingers.
can-
I'll
You can still play.
I'll do the Gattaca thing where he does with the legs with my fingers to get violin fingers.
No, I mean, anyone can learn.
Right.
Maybe like alto flute or something. Something a little unusual. I don't play any like woodwinds or brass or anything, so I think some kind of wind. And yeah, I just really like alto flute, so let's go with that.
Cool.
Brandon.
I think I would be a really good drummer. I would really
that's
like to
nice.
learn how to play drums.
That'd be fun.
But I want
Drums are the one oh sorry. go ahead.
I want to skip the whole period of time where I'm making the loudest racket as I learn what I'm doing. I just want to skip to like I can be not good, but I want to be not good in a listenable way. That's all.
Sure. Drums are like the one instrument that every time I've tried to play, I just like cannot wrap my head around it. I don't know why, but my brain's just like, nope, can't do it.
Well, we can start to wrap up. Before we do that, what card does everyone want to draw for their our reading right now? I've got my card ready.
Oh yeah, I drew mine a bit ago.
I've opened dailytarotdraw.com because I have got multiple tarot decks. My favorite deck is the White Newman deck.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Let me
Show me
find a link
this.
for you. You can find this listener at hang on.
Oh, while you're doing that, I'll shout out the deck that I got that is extremely me, and probably might be extremely you, is Sam Jackson's The Singularity deck. Which is
Yeah.
cool.
It's very cool.
It's very cool. If you like things like Realis, or The Book of the New Sun, or Morrowind, you might like the Singularity deck. These are all things I like quite a bit.
Okay, this is the White Newman deck, a Sacred Animal Tarot deck, which you can get at moonpalacebooks.com, liminal11.com, and on amazon.com. It is by Alba Ballesta Gonzalez. It is inspired by ancient rituals and stories of sacred animal prints. I'll link you all to the liminal11.com storefront because it's got the most images attached to it.
Oh yeah.
But I don't have that within arm's reach, so I'm using this dang website.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite deck. I have so many
Really?
decks. Yeah, well,
That's surprising.
What's your favorite deck of the moment?
Yeah, there you go.
I like the Luminous Void Tarot by Laura. I might say her last name wrong. It's like Zuspin. It's like very abstract watercolor stuff. It's very cool.
Cool.
These are rounded cards. That's fun.
They are around. They are really hard to shuffle. But that's fine because they're pretty.
Okay, Megan, you're our guest, so I think you should go first, and we'll interpret our 3-card spread together as these cards make their appearances.
Okay. Well, I actually got the tower, so
Oh gosh. Every bad thing that's happened in the past hour has been because of that.
Let me
Yeah,
open
my
the
fault.
news. Let me see what's going on today.
Oh yeah.
oh no.
Oh, come on.
That's right. Come on. Okay, my turn.
Yeah.
I have the the 7 of Swords.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're doing great so
Yeah,
far.
you know, sometimes you just pick up a bunch of swords and you've got them all in your hands, and nothing is going to go wrong.
Yeah. I drew the 2 of Cups.
Oh, you got a good one.
Yeah. I'm happy with that. You two can figure out whatever's wrong with your life.
Wow. Okay.
So Tower, 7 of Swords, 2 of Cups. That seems like maybe like making the best out of, like, picking up the pieces from the fallout of a disaster and building something new out of them, or something like that.
Yeah, I think the order we said them in is important.
Yeah,
'cause-
definitely. Things are getting better, not worse,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't be mad at that reading. But then, if they were in the opposite order, that I would not be happy about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, finding something good out of some sort of disaster or whatever. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm going to put this into Vignette after this.
Oh
and hear
yeah,
what it
I'd be
sounds
really
like.
curious to know what it sounds like. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That sounds really.
Megan, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you on the internet if they want to follow you or learn more about your projects?
My website is megancarnesmusic.com, and I am Magma Cranes on all the social medias, pretty much. I don't have any specific projects to plug or anything right now. Everything I'm working on is secret, so yeah.
In terms of when people might expect to get their hands on Vignette, when do you think?
I
might
still
be-
have no idea. It's kind of hard because it's a side project, right?
Sure,
It's not my
yes.
full-time job. So it totally depends how much other work I have going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Deeply valid.
Anytime I've tried to set a release date, it gets totally derailed. So I've just stopped trying for now.
And your Twitch, where you do Divinuette streams, is Twitch Magma Cranes on Twitch.
Yeah, that's Magma Cranes also. Yeah, I don't do them super often, but I like to do them once in a while.
Awesome.
Nick,
Yeah.
anything else from
Brendan,
you?
well, no, my only thing is to ask you if you have anything else.
Well, I guess we're just trapped in an infinite loop forever.